Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Get ready for the underclass. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. In countries like India and Great Britain, there is a class system. The rich and middle class prosper, the so-called underclass mired in poverty. In America, we pride ourselves that we're all equal. However, that's not really true. There is a growing underclass here that is quietly becoming a major problem. A recent CNN poll asked American adults how well are things going in the country today. 47% say things are good, 52% things are bad. Which of the following is the most important issue facing America today? The economy, 22%, education, 17%, terrorism, 13%. Now, the education percentage is telling. Many Americans catching on that the public school system is a mess, generally speaking. We spend the second highest amount per student in the world, next to Switzerland. Yet American kids do not perform well on standardized tests. Why? Well, there is a new, fairly secret approach to public education that may be part of the reason. Last night, we spoke with a teacher in St. Paul, Minnesota, who says fourth graders in his school are running wild.
I had an altercation with the student where the student actually punched me. I restrained the student, brought the student into the principal, and I didn't want the student to be incarcerated. However, I wanted some consequences. That student was returned back to my class, Mr. O'Reilly, within 10 minutes.
Mr. Benner says much of the problem with discipline is because of the Pacific Educational Group, PEG. The St. Paul School District has paid that crew about $3 million to tell teachers to treat minority students differently than white students. Discipline is put aside in order to understand bad behavior. The group was founded by Glenn Singleton, former educator based in San Francisco. Here's the philosophy quote. It is critical for educators to address racial issues in order to uncover personal and institutional biases that prevent all students, and especially students of color, from reaching their fullest potential, unquote. In other words, minority kids are not to be treated like white kids. School districts in San Francisco, Philadelphia, Seattle, Boston, Denver, just to name a few, pay that group a lot of money. And for that money, they get advice like this, quote, examine the presence and the role of whiteness, unquote. What's really happening here is that minority students at risk in poor neighborhoods are being told they don't have to obey the same rules as white kids. They have a special status because of their circumstance. This, of course, creates a sense of entitlement among the children, that they're somehow exempt from uniform rules of conduct. Thus, an underclass is being created in the public school system of children who are not held to the proper standards of learning and behavior. They are given special treatment, and that treatment is based on race. The result is that those kids will leave school with a jaded view of what it really takes to succeed in a very competitive society. And when the reality of the marketplace crushes them, many will become permanent members of the underclass. All of this going on very silently. I bet few of you have ever heard of the Pacific Educational Group. I didn't know about it until eagnews.org broke the St. Paul story. In the end, this racist educational program hurts the very children it's allegedly trying to assist. By allowing minority kids to avoid responsibility for their behaviors, the school districts are dooming many of them to a life of poverty and chaos. Pity the kids. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight. Reaction joining us from Wilmington, Delaware, Salome Thomasell, principal of the Thomas A. Edison Charter School there. And with us here in New York City, Basil Schmeichel, Columbia University lecturer who helped start an all-boys public high school in the Bronx. So where am I going wrong here, Mr. Schmeichel?
Well, I don't like the term entitlement, and I don't like the term that there's this expectation that their behavior is somehow going to be exempt. That is not the case. No one's saying that. What they're saying is that all of the research shows that black men and women, black boys and girls, are being suspended or expelled from school at a significantly higher rate than white students, and creating what we would call a school-to-prison pipeline.
Let me stop you there.
That's the problem.
Shouldn't there be one standard of expulsion and suspension for every student?
There should
Just one.
There should be a standard, and my belief is that there is a standard. I think what the argument is that teachers, many of them have a different expectation of their minority students than they do of white students, are far quicker to suspend and expel students of color.
But the teachers can't expel. It's got to come from the principal or vice principal. Okay, but then that's basically a principal problem, an individual problem. This group all right, tells big school districts, listen, you got to give the minority kids a pass. You heard the St. Paul teacher. He got punched, and the kid was back in 10 minutes, and when he asked the principal why, he was told, hey, we don't want to suspend or expel anybody. That's what we're told not to do.
No one is saying that a student that punches a teacher should not be punished.
But that's the reality.
My mother was a public school teacher for 28 years. If somebody attacked her, of course I'd want that student punished. But what we're saying is that there should be alternative
So you
means.
don't agree with this Pacific crew?
No, I agree with it in the sense that there are alternatives to suspending or expelling a child to put them to criminalize certain behavior. If you punch a student, that's different. If you punch a student, that's different.
Okay,
if you punch a teacher, that's different.
Okay, but it isn't different because that's what we're dealing with.
But we're saying that there are other behaviors that are being criminalized that shouldn't be.
Mr. Thomas L., you say?
Well, Bill, you and I know that children can choose a behavior, but they can't choose the consequences. And what we can't do, and I understand the process of being able to teach teachers because they make the referrals to me as a principal. So I have to be able to train these teachers. Most of the teachers in America did not grow up in neighborhoods where they teach. So what we need to do is be able to assist them to understand and realize the actions of students. But no way should a student be allowed to put their hands on a teacher. And I see it more and more. When I saw the video of this child who took a cell phone from a teacher.
That was in Philadelphia.
We cannot allow children to behave like
Isn't
that.
this racist behavior on the part of the Pacific Education Group treating minority students differently than white students? Isn't that racist in itself? What is it? They call it the low expectations, the racism of low expectations. Isn't that what this is?
Yeah. And children will rise to your level of expectation. So if you expect them to misbehave, if you expect them not to be able to follow the rules, they won't. And it's unfair, and we're setting those children up for failure, Bill.
That's what I believe. Now, Mr. Smikle, I agree with you. There has to be a sensitivity involved, all right, when you come from a troubled home. It's not the child's fault that they don't have a father or they have neglectful or abusive parents. That's not the child's fault.
Also an overused argument, but okay.
Okay. But believe me, you know what it is. You know what the stats are. That the traditional family's falling apart.
But I think we spend a lot of time talking about those stats and don't actually talk about the system itself. What was said earlier is correct. You have a lot of teachers in these communities that are there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and then they're gone. Where's the continuity? That has nothing to do with what's happening at home or in the neighborhood. That's structural with the school system.
No, but the child brings, look, I'm a former high school teacher. The child brings his culture into the classroom.
Sure.
If there's no discipline at home, it's hard to discipline at school. You know that. So there has to be one rule that everybody obeys.
But there absolutely is. But
not in these schools.
My problem is that we're assuming that this discipline problem is pathological and cultural. It is not. It is not the norm in communities of color. There are kids in those schools doing incredible work and behaving appropriately.
But the disruption is much higher in those districts. The last word to you, Mr. Thomas L. Go ahead.
Well, you know, in my opinion, and let's be straight about this. A large, overwhelming number of students and teachers are doing a great job in this country. We need to get back to giving teachers and students the autonomy to be creative. Stop testing them every day and thinking that's the answer. Let's build resilient schools that build resilient teachers and resilient children, because teaching children to be successful is not, be resilient is not about teaching them to be successful. It's teaching them how to respond when they're not successful. When they need discipline, let's discipline them, because discipline is a form of love and they need education. For some, it may be their only salvation.
All right. Gentlemen, thanks very much. We appreciate it. Next on The Rundown.